al-Bukhari. We spent the first week, in fact, looking at the circumstances of the authoring of Imam Bukhari's text, the reason, the purpose behind the authoring of this text, and why this discourse of adab and husn al-khuluq, is so crucial and central to our religion. We should be, of course, reminded, even though we're not making social contact now, we have social distancing. We have to, at the same time, understand and learn how to have social concern, social empathy, social character with one another, because we are, of course, social beings that Allah made us. And so therefore, understanding and knowing how to deal with one another, how to interact with one another, how to speak with one another is absolutely essential in Islam and for us as human beings. And last week we looked at the importance of rahmah, of mercy, when it concerns like children, when it concerns spouses. We looked at the importance of being dutiful to one's parents, one's mother, one's father. We spoke about sisters and brothers and close relatives. And now we're on the chapter of being good to one's neighbors. And this is a very important chapter, because neighbors is about people that we don't have a relation with. The ones we've discussed previously with the mother or the father or sisters and brothers and relatives are all those we have relations with. And therefore there's more of a kind of a self-generated desire and interest to maintain those relations. Of course, there's a benefit in that because it creates harmony within the family ties. It means that children of one family can meet children of another family. It means there's going to be peace and goodwill in family settings and domestic settings, and all that's to do with blood relations. So therefore there's an interest in that, because that's common, that's normal for us to maintain relations with those that we are connected to by blood. But what about those that we're not connected to by blood, who are not relations to us, like guests and like neighbors, for example? And what does Islam say about maintaining relations with those kinds of people? Remember that one of the beautiful things about Islam is about social cohesiveness, about creating a sense of social cohesion in society, a social sense of togetherness and goodwill between people. And this is practiced in many different ways. And so one of the ways, of course, it's done is ensuring that there's no sense of filial impiety, disobedience in a family home between parents and children. That there's going to be respect and love and goodwill and companionship between a husband and his wife. But the other one now, of course, is to do with dealing with neighbors in the best way. And this really has so many ramifications, so many repercussions for effective da'wah, effective conveying and showing the beauty of Islam to the world in which we live, and essentially in our discourse to our neighbors. And so we're going to begin therefore. This is Hadith 101 from Imam Bukhari's Al-Adab Al-Mufrad, and this is the chapter on advice about neighbors. Okay, wasatu bil jar, advice about neighbors. And this hadith is interesting hadith. This comes from Aisha, Allah be pleased with her, who reported that the Prophet ﷺ said that ma zala Jibreel yusini bil jar, that Jibreel continued to telling me about neighbors until I thought he was going to tell me that they will have a share in one's inheritance as well. This is a famous hadith. This is hadith is also in Sahih Muslim, Sahih Bukhari as well, Abu Dawud, Tirmidhi, Tahawi, and Ibn Majah. And so now what's interesting about this hadith in the beginning, of course, is how it starts, because it says Jibreel kept continuing to tell me about neighbors and the rights of neighbors until I thought that they would be sharing in inheritance. Of course, neighbors don't share in inheritance, but the hadith is emphasizing that's how important neighbors and neighborliness is, to a person. And so notice that when it says that Jibreel, ma zala Jibreel yusini bil jar, that Jibreel kept on telling me about neighbors. Of course, it's not coming from Jibreel. Jibreel is just carrying the commands from Allah and then delivering them to the Prophet ﷺ. But it's interesting that it begins like that. Jibreel kept telling me. The idea is, of course, it's Allah telling Jibreel and Jibreel telling the Prophet ﷺ. And so it says, the whole idea is that it's the virtue of proximity. It's the virtue of the fact that there are people who are living next to you and they're close to you. There are people that you see more often than people who live in far away from you. People you see, parking into their driveway as you're parking into your driveway. People that you see, leaving their homes almost every single day or coming back into their homes almost every single day. People that you see, meaning you physically see. You can hear their children playing as they can hear your children playing. There's a sense of closeness already that's being that you're seeing when it comes to neighbors, and that's what makes it different. So the virtue of close proximity, the Prophet is saying that just like there are family relations who take a share of your inheritance because they're very close to you. The Prophet is saying that Jibril kept telling me about neighbors until I thought that they're so important that they would take a share of inheritance. And again, it's to do with close proximity because they're very close to you. That's the first hadith. Hadith number 102. This is a very famous hadith. This hadith is also in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, Tirmidhi, again Abu Dawud, Nasa'i and Tahawi. And in this hadith from Abu Shurayh al-Khaza'i, reported that the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir falyuhsin ila jarihi." Whoever believes in Allah and the last day should be excellent, yuhsin, be really good to his neighbor. وَمَنْ كَانَ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ فَلْيُكْرِمْ ضَيْفَهُ. Whoever believes in Allah on the last day should honor his guest. Okay, should be good to his guest. And then وَمَنْ كَانَ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ فَلْيَقُلْ خَيْرًا أَوْ لِيَصْمُتْ. Let him speak good or remain silent. And so therefore these three come together in this hadith in this way. Very interesting. So the first one, of course, is to do with our discussion, which is about neighbors. So when the Prophet says, whoever believes in Allah on the last day, let him show excellence. فَلْيُحْسِنْ إِلَى جَارِهِ. Let him show excellence to his neighbors. Now notice, of course, in this hadith you have, whoever believes in Allah and the last day. Why is that so important? Because remember that this is what makes it so crucial for us, to believe in Islam. And this is why, superficial moral systems that come from atheists and agnostics, which have no foundation, no founding on a belief, premised on the next life and the akhirah, are so problematic. Why? Because if a person doesn't believe in the next life, what would prevent him from acting with immorality in this life? It's a big discussion, big question for the atheists, agnostics. If you don't believe in the next life, if nothing's holding you back in this life, what would prevent you from acting with such immorality and disobedience and sin? I mean, there isn't even a concept of a sin. So if there's no concept of a sin, then what's holding us back? Remember, of course, that taqwa is supposed to be a restraint for us, holding us back from disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when we're thinking about the next life, it serves like as our place for investment building, that we're investing in the next life. Allah in the Quran, when He says, for example, subhanahu wa ta'ala, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَلْتَنظُرْ نَفْسٌ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لِغَدٍ وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ خَبِيرٌ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. O you who believe, fear Allah, and let every soul look to see what it's sending forward for tomorrow, and fear Allah. Allah is aware of what you do, all aware of what you do. So therefore, tomorrow's day is really the incentive for us in this life. So the way that we're supposed to behave and talk and act and who we're worshiping, all of this has major ramifications for us and our fate in the next life, right? And that's how a Muslim lives his life, with always the next life in mind, and to determine whatever he's going to do in this life and how you're speaking and how you're treating them. Therefore, the Prophet said, "Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir," whoever believes in Allah and the last day, falyuhsin ila jarihi, then let him show goodness to his neighbor. Meaning, therefore, there's going to be a consequence if one didn't show goodness to his neighbor in the next life. Therefore, the emphasis given, if you believe in Allah and the last day, show beauty, excellence to your neighbor. وَمَنْ كَانَ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ, and whoever believes in the last day, then let him show goodness and kindness to his guest. And if you believe in Allah on the last day, then speak good or remain silent. So it's interesting, in fact, how these three work together, right? So you have the neighbor, you have the guest, Then you have tongue and talking. Many, of course, relationships are spoiled, are ruined simply because we haven't really been cautious about our tongue, and even relations with neighbors and relations with guests. It's an interesting thing. So therefore, if we're not going to use words of courtesy with close ones, even on people who are not close to us, anybody. But in this case, with neighbors and with guests, we're not going to use words of goodness. Then of course it could ruin those relationships, right? So that sense of physical closeness can become kind of a distance, emotional distance, emotional distance, detachment. In fact, so what's supposed to be physically close can become emotionally detached if we're not using the right words with the people that we're speaking to. And so therefore the last one is very key in solidifying, I think, even the first two, and for us in life to know, of course, about the dangers of the tongue. من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليقل خيرا أو ليصمت. Whoever believes in Allah and the last day, let him speak good or remain silent. Okay. And then we come to a section on Bab Haqq al-Jar, again about the neighbors, but this is about the rights of the neighbors. Important hadith, I think we should mention it. There are other hadith that are similar to the one that we mentioned in the beginning about Jibreel alayhi salam, so we're going to miss those hadith. But this one is important. It says that Miqdad ibn al-Aswad reported that the Prophet asked his companions about adultery, about adultery, and Allah and His Prophet have forbidden it. They replied, of course, that Allah has forbidden adultery and His Prophet. And then the Prophet said to them, this is the key thing for us. He said that for a man to commit adultery with 10 women is no greater an abomination than if he were to commit adultery once with his neighbor's wife. It's a big thing. Then he asked about theft, and they replied that it too has been prohibited by Allah and His Prophet. And so the Prophet said, for one to steal from 10 different houses is no greater an abomination than if he were to steal only from his neighbor's home. So again, what it's emphasizing, therefore, is that the sin committed against those who are close to you, as in your neighbors, is much worse than a sin committed than against random people. And remember, of course, there's a lot of wisdom in this, because if it's, for example, in the case of the adultery, there's supposed to be a sense of trust between people when they're neighbors, a sense of trust, a sense of companionship, a sense of closeness to them. But the ultimate betrayal would be that a man would fall into that terrible sin of adultery with his neighbor's wife, because it's a total betrayal of trust, not just against the woman but also against the man. Remember, of course, when Yusuf alayhi salam was trapped in the room with Zulaykha, and that's exactly what she intended. So when Allah says وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ, when Allah said that she locked all the doors, it was to seduce and trap Yusuf alayhi salam. And then she says, قالت هيت لك, she said, come to me. And then he said, قال معاذ الله, I seek refuge with Allah. إنه ربي, he is my Lord. The Mufassirin, they say almost unanimous that he's not speaking about Allah when he says إنه ربي. He's speaking about his master, meaning إنه سيدي. The Sayyid is the Lord here. He's the master, meaning the one I'm working for, the one I'm supposed to be, in his house, right? إنه ربي أحسن مثواي. Then he says, he's been good to me. أحسن مثواي, he's been good to me. Why would I want to betray that trust if he's been good to me? So, ma'ad Allah, first, of course, it's Allah. The sin committed against anybody is a violation against, the commandments of Allah. You're transgressing the limits with Allah before anybody else, because that's a sin with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then number two, it's a transgression against the person, right? You're spoiling something that Allah wanted to be kept, in place and in peace. So he says, ma'ad Allah, number one, is Allah that you're transgressing against. Number two, ahsana mathwai, he's been good to me, meaning inna rabbi ahsana mathwai, he's my Lord, meaning my master, he's been good to me. Transgression against the human being, the one that you're sinning against. And then he says, إِنَّهُ لَا يُفْلِحُ الظَّالِمُونَ, that there is no, that the ones who do wrong and injustice will never be successful, right? So a realization, therefore, that even if I were to do the action, Allah forbid, of course, He would never do it. He's Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But He's saying that for the ones who would do the action, there's never success in that action. There's never, no one's going to win. No one achieves anything in that action except Allah's anger, and that's the worst of all things. So there's no success for those, who do such sins and such a zulm. And again, it's another thing. It's an act of zulm. So it's an act of injustice against somebody else. And so he's saying, therefore, that for you to do that with 10 different women is no greater abomination than if it were to commit adultery than once with his neighbor's wife. That's much worse as a sin. And the same is true with stealing. Now, stealing is interesting because if you steal from 10 different homes, and the Prophet is saying that stealing from your neighbor's home is no greater an abomination than stealing from your neighbor's home. Remember that stealing from your neighbor's home is really depraved, is depravity, because a neighbor would know about his neighbor's home. He would know what possessions there are in his, if he's been to his neighbor's home, he would know where things are. Therefore, it's more of a trust breaking, more of a betraying, because he would know about his neighbor's home. He would know, what time the neighbor comes home. He would know what time the neighbor leaves. He would know if they have an alarm system. He would know if they have cameras. He would know kind of where they might keep valuable items. He would know what kind of TV they have. I mean, he would know about their possessions. And therefore, to steal from the neighbor's home is far more of a betrayal and far more of a breaking, of that trust. And so the Prophet is saying that, for you to do that from those who are supposed to be close to you, physically close and emotionally close to you, is no more greater an abomination than if you were doing it to 10 other random strangers. Okay. And then we have the following hadith 104, 105, and 106 are similar to the hadith that we mentioned in the beginning, 101, about, ما زال جبريل يوصيني بالجار, that Jibreel continued to advise me about the neighbor. So they're similar to that. 104 is almost identical to that. 105, 106 as well. And until we come to 107, and this is about from Talha, who said that Aisha related that she once asked the Prophet ﷺ, O Prophet of Allah, O Prophet of Allah, I have 2 neighbors, to which one shall I give a gift? And the Prophet replied, to the one who lives closest to you. Again, emphasizing, therefore, the closest always have more of, more, our sense of obligation to them is more if they're closest to us. And that's in terms of the mother, the father, the sister, remember, then the brothers, children. So the ones who are closest to us are more deserving in that sense, And so, and then the hadith 108 is the same. To whom shall I give a gift? The Prophet says, to the one who lives closest to you. And the following hadith are similar in that sense. So one who closes the door. Now I have to leave early today, inshallah, because I have a really pressing commitment for which I have to leave. And so I could only do this class really for 20 minutes today. I apologize for that. So we're stopping, inshallah, midway on the section on neighbors. Before we get to a section on orphans, inshallah, I will try to extend the class next week and cover, therefore, the remaining part of the neighbor, and we'll do all of orphans as well, inshallah. So may Allah bless all of you for listening. Jazakumullah khairan. May Allah allow us to act upon what we learn. We should, of course, say what our Prophet told us to say. Allahumma anfa'na ma 'allamtana wa 'allamna ma yanfa'na wa zidna ilma. O Allah, bless us by that which we learn and teach us that which will benefit us and increase us in knowledge. May Allah bless all of you. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.